ever-flowing liquid fire of life, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. All right, welcome everybody. We have Sam Warren with us here today. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing today, Ross?
I'm a lot better now that we had our little chat. Like I had said, I was a little bit discombobulated this morning, and I worked through some of it. Then I went back to that state, and now I'm in like a better place. So
Good.
I appreciate the conversation.
It's always nice to be able just to like chat things out, because when we get in our heads too much, we just stay in our head. But talking things out, I find personally, at least as an extrovert, I find talking things out actually allows me to kind of come back to home base.
Yeah, I'm kind of like an ambivert myself. Like I like my me time and I like to be extroverted. But one of the things I found is definitely like through being in a 12-step program, talking it out, like you say, is so beneficial. Before I would surround myself with people that didn't really get it or like wouldn't really contribute anything valuable to the conversation, I would say, or like they would just be like jerks about things.
Yeah.
So like having a respectful dialogue with somebody that's kind of working through similar stuff or has experience with similar things really is incredibly useful. It's one of the greatest tools in my recovery kit.
Yeah, totally agree with you there.
Okay, so first question, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, today I'm grateful for a lot of things today, actually. I'm grateful for the summer. I made a decision this summer because I worked myself silly last summer. I didn't have a break at all. Working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day almost. And so this summer I've decided to just chill out and just take things easy and just be receptive to whatever comes my way and not kind of push things. So I'm really, really grateful for the summer, but I'm also grateful for the opportunity that I can do this too. I'm grateful for the sun. It's been raining here in Toronto for so long that the sun has finally decided to show its face. And super grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for my cat. I'm grateful for my breath. I'm grateful for the neighborhood I live in. I live like 5 minutes away from our largest park where there's a forest and a pond, and it's just huge and it's beautiful. And yeah, I'm just grateful for everything, I want to say, for everything, for life.
Well, that's awesome. That's definitely a lot to be grateful for. It's always nice to hear like everybody else's take, and there's some common threads and some different ones, and it's just, I think it's a good way to start off an interview or like a conversation like this.
Yeah, it's more than, like, how are you doing today? Who are you? What do you do? And it's like, because have you ever gone networking and it's like the first thing they ask you, because you have a name tag already, so they know your name, is, oh, so what do you do? And it's just like, I'm more than what I do here. Like, let's have an authentic conversation here. So yeah, so I really appreciate the experience of being, what are you grateful for? I feel like we need to have like networking events where we start off with like things like that.
I've never been to a networking event yet. That's probably something that I'll have to experience in my future at some point with like wanting to do a business and all that, but
yeah,
not there yet.
No, don't go if you don't have to.
Now that you sold me on it now.
Yeah, they're not, to be honest with you. I stopped going to networking events probably almost a year ago. No, let's say about 8 months ago. 8 months ago, I stopped going just because it was so ridiculous. And it's just like all these business people going in and exchanging cards. And I'm like, I don't need any more cards. I want connections, not cards. So I just found some groups of people that I really enjoy hanging out with. And I just kind of developed my tribe through hanging out with these people. And that literally within itself has been my form of networking.
Hmm.
just this one particular tribe that I'm a part of, and it's really a beautiful place to be. So, and they're all like what it's all like-minded, mostly women, but it's like-minded women. Yeah,
No, that's pretty awesome. I think what like if I ever did do a networking thing, maybe it would be like spirituality based, or even the people that I've had on the podcast would be a cool group of people to network with and like
yeah.
introduce them to other people that I've had on here that they might not be in contact with, or like things like that.
Absolutely. Well, even like, yeah, the people that you've had on the podcast, even in the positive head group, like all of these things, it's all networking. And this is just like the kind of networking I think you and I are more into versus the business networking where we go and, we say, what do you do? How are you? All right, cool. You have like a little 5-minute conversation about whatever it is that you can try and connect with. You pass off a card and try to get business that way.
Yeah, I couldn't do like that kind of surface stuff. Like I need
Yeah.
to sit down with people on a one-on-one and have like
Yeah.
get like all the stuff out that they want to
Yeah.
talk about. Like,
It's like, let's have a soul connection and then work around that first.
yeah, I think that's definitely a better approach for me. Certainly, I could see that being good for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not my thing. I'm an extrovert and I love being around people and talking to people and connecting, and I vibe off of it. But when it feels soulless, when it feels like there's nothing there, but like I'm gonna get a contact off of you because I want your business, then it's
Hmm.
like I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, it's like the means isn't just like a genuine connection, and there's a motive behind it beyond that or whatever.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to deal with that either. Like,
It's not fun.
okay, next question would be, what quotes do you feel most moved by, and can you explain what they mean to you?
Yeah. So I've got quite a bit. So the first one is it's a Dr. Seuss quote, um, which is be who you are and say what you feel, because those who don't matter um, mind, and those who mind don't matter. And I found this in my agenda when I was 16 and in high school. And for some reason, I was just so drawn to it. I was just like, oh, this is it. This is my life quote. And it stuck with me for a good couple of years. And like I used to like use an email signature with that as like part of the email signature, because it was just like, who cares about all of you, because I'm going to be who I am and do what I want, and if you don't like it, well, then you're not part of my circle, right? And it still applies to today, because we all get so caught up in what other people think, and the people who don't matter are the ones who we're trying to impress. Like, we're trying to impress other people, but it doesn't matter to them. And if these other people out there do care about what we do, then why do we want them in our lives?
Hmm.
Right? Like, they're not people who are going to enrich our lives. These are the people who are going to keep us small. These are the people who are going to keep us down. These are the people who aren't going to allow us to flourish and to bloom and to um, allow us to show our gifts the way that we need to and the way that we're meant to. um, so I really, really love that quote for that reason. And I just love Dr. Seuss. I think he is like the quirkiest, most fun, I think, person who's ever lived on this earth. I think he's amazing. um, my other quote that I really, really love, I have two more. So this one is, do not regret or deny your journey. It all had to be what it was in order for you to find your path. And there was no specific person who said this. It just says Gurmukh as the author, but Gurmukh is a yoga teacher, is a guru. So it's kind of like an anonymous who had said this. And I randomly came across this quote probably about a year and a half ago. And I've always believed that, things always happen for a reason. I've always believed that there's a chronological order for what we do and how we go about in life. And when I came across that, it just like, it hit home, because it's like and I was going through a rough time at this point here. It wasn't a very good part. I was just feeling really down and unsure about where I was going, and whether the choices that I was making were actually helping me, or they were just choices I made so that I didn't have to feel a certain way. And I came across this, and it made me feel like it's okay. Whatever choices I had made at that point in my life, and where I'm going to be making the choices, it doesn't matter whether or not they're good for me or they're not good for me. It's the choice that I needed to make for myself, to learn the lessons that I need to learn to move forward to where I am today. And that's been a big part of my life, is just trusting that the choices that I'm making are exactly where I need to be and what I need to be doing. So, and then the last quote that's my favorite is it's by Paulo Coelho. Are you familiar with him?
I think I've used a couple of his quotes. I'm not familiar with him outside of just seeing his name before.
Okay, I'll talk about him some more later on. But he's an author. He's a Brazilian author. And one of my favorite books by him, the last line of the book is "Love simply is." And that's it. Love simply is. And I actually have it tattooed on the back of my neck here, just because I love it so much. I think it's just such a beautiful sentiment. You know, there's no rhyme, there's no reason to why you love or how you love and why you love so deeply. It's just, love simply is. It just is. You know, you can't control it, you can't change it, can't do anything else. It just is what it is. So.
Yeah, no, those are awesome quotes. For the Dr. Seuss one, I really like that quote as well. And in my personal experience, like, I used to try to always please people. I was a people pleaser most of my life. And in doing that, I would have to don a different mask for different situations. So eventually I had so many different masks, and I was spinning trying to like costume change so much that I forgot who I really was in lots of senses. And I would try to please the people that didn't matter, and I would trample over the people that did matter. And then eventually what ended up happening is, when you act fake, you get fake friends. Like, that's been my experience in lots of. And tying into the next quote of like respecting your journey and everything had to happen, essentially, like paraphrasing that. I had to go through all that stuff. Every scraped knee, every bruise, every broken heart has brought me to where I am today. And a lot of people say like, oh, if I could change the past, I would do this differently. I would do that differently. And even though I've done some stuff that have hurt people and have hurt myself and caused negative situations, I wouldn't change it, because I couldn't be who I am today without any of those occurrences happening. Yeah. And I like who I am. All that stuff was knowledge, experience. And it's like, my greatest strength lied in my weaknesses, and evaluating that and looking at my own darkness and seeing the light in there and figuring out how to bring that to the forefront. And love simply is, my concept of love was definitely like very akin to what I perceive the very modern concept of it to be, where it's very possessive, it's dominating, controlling, manipulative. If you don't do this, I don't love you. And it really hurt a lot of women in my life, and loving that way really hurt me a lot. And it's not that I didn't care about them, I didn't know how to do that in a healthy way. And like, one of the trade-offs for feeling so deeply was I hurt very deeply about those situations that I ended up bringing about by how I would love people. And by letting love simply be what it is now, which is unconditional acceptance of situations, of people, and still caring for them, I'm in such a healthier position now. And granted, I don't always do it perfectly, but it's not about being perfect. Loving myself is saying, I'm going to make mistakes. That's part of humanity. And
Right.
can I love myself through that? And I totally can.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
days better than others.
Story of the human experience, right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it's and like as you're saying this, I realized that people could take the love simply is in so many different ways. It's like, well, love is, you know, about manipulation. Love is about jealousy. It's about possession. It's about control. But when you understand love in its purest form, it is unconditional. It is like just this beautiful, energetic state and force that just emits, and it encourages and fosters and includes everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've found is I'm in a much healthier position if I love everybody. I don't have to like everybody. There's a big distinction. I don't have to like
Yeah.
but one of the people that I like volunteer with, she's been somewhat of a mentor to me. She has studied the Kabbalah, and she talks about there being a spark of divinity in everybody. And the concept is we're supposed to help all these sparks find their way back to the higher source. So people that are acting ways that I don't like necessarily, those are the people that need love more than the people that I do like, probably, because in my experience, people don't act certain ways because of anything beyond fear and pain.
Yeah.
So like that's what causes all the negative stuff, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Fear is the biggest one, I would say. And the pain of the inner child that's just screaming for the help.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely it. Yeah. Cause it's like, and I get into such arguments with people because it's like around Trump, and it's like, I don't agree with what he does. I don't agree with who he is. I don't like him, but what I see when I see him is this really hurt child who is just screaming for attention for whatever the hurt is being dealt with. And there's a lot of fear inside of if he doesn't act this, if he doesn't act this way, if he doesn't do this or he doesn't do this, like all of the conditioning that who he is started by the time he was 6 years old. So you can't, and this is going to sound like this is so controversial what I'm saying, I know, because I've gotten into so many discussions about this with people. But it's like I can be really upset and really angry at the person of who he is now, but at the same time I can't, because it's just a 6-year-old running the show inside, who just needs to go to therapy and be loved and be hugged and be told that he's a perfect little boy, you know, or whatever it may be for him. But
no, I agree with that too. Like I don't agree with a lot of his stuff. I don't really, people hating him only further perpetuates all the problems that he is creating. And I also viewing it like holistically and from a sense of understanding that source is everything. He's there for a reason. And his position is actually unifying a lot of people, even though he's trying to be divisive or whatever.
Yeah.
So like in the sense of his Make America Great Again thing, I like to joke and say, well, we're going to have no other option but to do so when he's done. And his actions actually are in the fact that it's getting people involved in politics, making people more aware. Granted, it's also creating these two greater extremes. But those extremes will come back to the center at some point. That's just the nature of reality in my experience. Have you studied Hermetic philosophy at all, or Hermeticism?
You know, I haven't studied it, but I'm familiar with it.
One of the concepts is the principle of polarity, which when one thing goes one way, the opposite goes to that extreme as well. So through his actions, he's going to have to bring it in eventually. just because that's the nature of it. There's only so far a pendulum can swing before it comes back to the center.
Before it balances each other out and kind of goes like, okay, we're done with this energy shift here. Let's just stay balanced for a moment.
Yeah, like I think that'll come from all this. Whether we survive through not just him, but through all of that shifting, I don't know. But I can't really worry about me in relation to the whole everything, I guess. Whatever happens is supposed to happen.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I just wish more people saw it this way too, as opposed to all the hate. But
yeah, they just perpetuate. But that's about them not loving themselves and not being on that level with everything yet in their own self. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
One of the hardest lessons for me to learn is how I perceive other situations as a reflection of me. Just like with the situation we were talking about, with me being upset with my mom. That's about me, like I had said. It's not about her.
No.
It sucks to have to say that because it's easier when it's other people.
It's so much easier. It's so much easier when you can blame it on other people. Are you kidding? It's like that's what you grew up doing. That's what, like that's what everyone does here. No wonder their lives they look easier because they're just like, I can blame it all on that and this and that. But
yeah,
it's just like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but just with like personal development, it's like it's messy. Like personal development and work on yourself is messy, and once you kind of come out of that messiness, or you can understand the messiness better, it's like, it's so much, as Brandon says, it's, you can't have the sweet without the sour, and the sweet is always sweeter with the sour, and I've always loved that because it's just like, this feels like a really messy moment, but on the other side of it, you're like, oh, this actually feels really good. It sucks in the moment because you realize what's going on. But once you kind of come out of it and you realize it, it literally is like, okay, it feels a lot brighter. It feels a lot sweeter. It feels lighter. It feels like you can move through it a little bit easier. And yeah.
I always find it funny. Like I used to always say this, and sometimes I still fall in the trap. You made me feel this way. And it's like dissecting what that's, you made me feel, and it's like I've just given away all my power in the situation, and I've become a puppet on somebody else's actions. I victimized myself.
Oh yeah, I still find myself doing that with my partner. Like, and I don't really I've learned to say you made me feel this way, but I now switch it to I feel this way. When the situation comes, because I'm not allowing the power of it going towards him, of how the argument or the comment he said or something like that made me, like, you made me feel this way for it. But I do catch myself going like, okay, is this something valid, or is this something me trying to just like deflect what I'm going through and what I'm feeling to put it back onto him?
Yeah, absolutely. That little pause, and like, that's the thing for me. Sometimes I'm not always conscious because it's such a conditioned response of reacting with, you made me feel this way.
Yeah.
Like taking that 1 second and being like, I feel this way, and not making them responsible for how I feel, but also like you said, kind of like dissecting the situation to understand, is this a valid reason that I feel this way? Or is this about me deflecting some of my own neuroses,
yeah. You got it.
But like dissecting that, and like, I don't know, it's a trip. But one of the things for me too, like how you were talking about Brandon mentioning the sour and the sweet, with going through things in recovery, one of the things I had to face was like abandonment issues, because one of my female friends who I had feelings for, she kind of went her own way at the beginning of my recovery. And I was set in this situation of having to deal with things that I never dealt with without using, from all my relationships where I was heavy in using one substance or another. And then through sitting there with it, in that misery, in that pain, getting through it without having to use, and feeling that sense of accomplishment and actually understanding it and working through it without, that was amazing. Like, it gave me so much hope, because that was one of the biggest situations that caused me to run from stuff, I guess.
Right.
So it's like facing my fears made me stronger. Facing my
Absolutely.
pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, like I was saying before too, it's like, it's messy and it's not fun. Like when you go through your shadow work, or even when you do some personal work on yourself, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not fun work, because you're uncovering so much and you're relearning so many new things, or you're having to rehabitualize yourself into whatever it is that you need to do. But when you come out of it, you come out of it stronger, you come out of it lighter, and it feels brighter, it feels different, it feels it feels, I don't know, I personally love that feeling of like, oh, okay, like I love personal development. So for me, I love that.
Yeah, there's a reward for the work. And one of the things that I found in my own personal experience, by consciously evaluating that stuff when I'm ready to do it, when I want to sit down and actually digest these behaviors, conditioned responses, reactions, it actually prevents my misery later on in lots of ways. And maybe not prevent, but minimizes the effect that it has on me, because I can say, oh, this is just another fractal of that behavior. And this is what I did to work through that. Maybe it won't get all of it, but it can help me navigate through it better. And then having had achieved success with it before, I know, okay, I can work through this too, because I got through, the larger issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who experience that as well, even when it comes to like socially drinking as well. It's like, oh, do you really need to go out for a social drink with a friend, or can you just invite them over for a cup of tea instead, to like deal with whatever it is that you're working through? Like it's finding new ways of minimizing, I like what you said, minimizing the pain or the suffering, or minimizing what to go through, so that you can actually feel it, you can actually go through it and experience it. And then it also doesn't take quite as long either. I always find it doesn't take quite as long. Like if you were to be in this suffering stage, and then it could take, like weeks for you to finally move through it, because you've been, drinking, or you've been using substances and drugs, and, or maybe even using television or sex or food, or, whatever it may be that you just allow yourself to get consumed by. And it takes quite a while, because you're not allowing yourself to feel through it. Whereas if you feel through it and you sit with it and you go through it, and you allow yourself to just, like, the ebb and flow of the emotion, of the feeling, of the thought, of the situation to occur, it actually passes so much quicker. I find too. Like before, I used to be able to, it would take me, like I said, it would take me personally, like sometimes weeks to get over a certain feeling. And it could be as something as small as like sadness, like just feeling sad about something. And I don't even know why I was sad, or I knew why I was sad. But it would take me weeks, because I wasn't dealing with it properly. I wasn't coping with it properly. I wasn't given the tools to cope with it properly. And, but now I sit with it, and it takes me maybe half a day. I mean, depending on the situation, obviously, but the last time I felt like real sadness, real grief, like heartbreaking grief, was a few weeks ago. And I sat with it, and I was still taught, and I went to work, and I did, everything I needed to do. And within, I want to say probably like 8 or 9 hours, the feeling had started to dissipate and started to kind of release and let go. And it was like, oh, that's new. Actually sitting with something and going through it, versus just putting it off, putting it under the rug, having a drink just to suppress it, smoking a joint just to forget about it. It was like, okay, no, I'm actually going to sit here. I'm going to cry when I feel like crying. I'm going to be quiet when I need to be quiet. I'm going to do what I need to do in those times. And yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. One of the steps in step work is 10th step, where you take a daily inventory of everything and you kind of make peace with everything within that day. And I don't remember where I heard this element of, it might have been from a podcast, something I read or at a meeting or something, but somebody basically said that when you don't deal with stuff in the moment and you push it, the longer that you hold on to that stuff and don't deal with it, the more firm of a root that it takes in your life and the harder it will be to get rid of it. And if you think about it in like the concept of, let's say your garage is empty and you put this one little box in that's filled with your pain from one day, and then the next day you do that, and then the next day you do that, and the next, eventually it's going to be like walled in this big wall of freaking pain because you didn't want to just unpack the box and like deal with it then. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that like concept really hit home to me when I heard that. So I got to try to unpack that box with like doing the daily inventory. It's so much easier because then I can take pride in the accomplishments I have in the day, because it's not just negative inventory, it's the good things and the bad things. I shouldn't have participated in this, or I did a good job doing that. So
yeah,
I think that's a really valid point, though. Like, deal with it now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to deal with it later.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a invaluable gift that person had bestowed upon you, just because even though you and I and most other people weren't given the gifts of learning how to deal with things in the moment, or even coping, like good coping mechanisms. That was such a beautiful gift that now you can relay on to other people as well moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all products of like quote unquote trickle down trauma in my experience, like trauma that's been going on forever.
Yeah.
So by like digesting these kind of concepts and sharing stuff that has helped me or helps you, you know what I mean? You sharing stuff that helps you, like vice versa. It's kind of being like trickle down healing in a sense. So
it's generational healing. Absolutely. I find that that each generation either goes through the same thing and just perpetuates it, or it stops at one generation, and you are either you or maybe your sister or whoever it may be is doing the healing, so it stops at that point there. So it doesn't have to continue. So the trickle down trauma doesn't need to continue past you. And it's a big burden to take on when you think of it that way. But at the same time, you're doing such a beautiful you're being of service, and you're doing such a beautiful thing for not only the future generations to come, but also you're healing your past generations as well.
Yeah, you're like being a filter for both of those things essentially, and like refining its essence, because there is good stuff in there. Like, I definitely, for me, one of my very first episodes I did on this podcast was trauma as a teacher or something like that.
Yeah.
And it is like, that's how you learn from, like, you burn your hand, you learn not to touch the stove. So it's
right.
like by sharing these things in a logical way, like I do, or like how you do things, by helping people like get into into like doing yoga or stuff, or like their therapy of their body, that makes a big impact on stuff.
Yeah, it really, really does. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah.
I agree completely.
We store a lot of the trauma in our bodies too, right? Like that's why, you cry when you get a massage sometimes, or you might feel angry when you're stretching a certain part of your body, or, and I was told once by a massage therapist that So, you know, whenever you're stretching and you happen to get into a spot where it's just really tight and really sensitive, and what one of my yoga teachers have said, it's a really spicy part of the body. um, what happens is, so like, as you're saying, like trauma could be anything from, yeah, putting your hand on the stove to, or onto, yeah, putting your hand onto like like one of the stove pieces and getting burnt, to sexual trauma, to relationship trauma, to parental and family trauma. It could be even so much as like someone saying a word to you or giving you a dirty look or even a tone. Like trauma in its is so perceptive, um, to the individual. Like it's so subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when we go through the trauma, our body goes into that, like that shock mode of like the fight, flight, or freeze. And what are we going to do here? What are we going to actually do in this moment? And in that moment with fight, flight, or freeze, you get a lot of adrenaline rushing through the body because you're like, okay, what do I do next? But you also get a lot of cortisol, and you get a lot of these other hormones rushing through your body. But what happens is we stay in these moments for longer than we need to. We stay in these shocked moments for longer. And the area that we hold the trauma in, basically when that shock happens, a part of our body tenses up, and that trauma gets stored in a certain part of our body, mostly our shoulders, our necks, our hips, our hip flexors, our hamstrings even. So these parts of our bodies are like super, super tight. And the sensation that you feel whenever something's releasing, that really kind of like, ooh, like you can, it feels good, but it doesn't feel good kind of sensation, is us actually targeting where the cortisol was trapped in that trauma. So I always like to think of it kind of like as like the cortisol that was, and the trauma that was trapped in the cell, kind of like a little cage going like, when am I going to get out? When am I going to get out? And it's kind of banging on the walls, which is creating like a lot of that tension that's in the body, that hard feeling of the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we finally release it, it's like, see you later, peace out, I'm gone. You know, it's kind of like its way of going, okay, I can release out, I can get out of there, and I don't have to stay trapped anymore. The cortisol doesn't want to stay in your body in that way, because we're not in fight, flight, or freeze all the time anymore, right? Like we're not cavemen anymore, so we don't need to have that in our body all the time. There's no threat. But we allow certain things to happen like that to us so often. And it could even be our thoughts that are triggering us to cause this emotional, causation here, and allow that cortisol to build up and everything get tense. So it's like, it's just like our trauma wants to leave the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't want to actually stay in us, but it's such a huge relief when we can work through it and we can release it, because we're holding on to all of that and we really don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know we got off on a little tangent there.
Oh, that's totally fine. Have you ever heard of Dr. Gabor Mate?
Oh, yes.
Have you heard what his definition of trauma is?
Someone had explained it to me before. You can remind me though.
It's things that should have happened that didn't, and things that shouldn't have happened that did. And basically, like you were saying, it's based on everybody's perception as well. So everybody's definition of trauma is different. I always liked that explanation of it.
Yeah, that's quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you explain who you are and what you do?
Well, we touched on it just a little bit, but I like to consider myself as a Jill of all trades kind of gal. Like I like to get my hands in many different little pots, but primarily people know me as a yoga teacher. So I teach the art of, what I call at least, the art of slowing down, which is all slow yoga. So most of the yoga that's on the market these days that you go to a class is like vinyasa, power, hot yoga, anything that gets your heart going and you get a sweat on, and it's what people like. Like people enjoy the fitness aspect of yoga. Which I am like, I love vinyasa yoga, but I don't love it for the fitness of it. I love just how my body, I use it as like as a form of meditation or as a form of prayer when I do those kinds of classes. But I fell in love with teaching the slower forms of yoga because we don't have it in our society as much. Like we don't encourage slowing down. We don't encourage staying with ourselves and staying with our breath and just being, right? Like we don't encourage that. And so I fell in love with the fact that I can hold space for people to do that. And I can offer that to people just by putting them into different shapes, different poses, letting them stay there for 5 to 10 minutes, but holding the space while people sit there and people relax and they let go and they work through whatever it is that they need to work through is a really, really beautiful and profound moment for myself. So for those of you who, for anyone else who's listening, who doesn't really know what slow yoga is, so it's restorative yoga, which is basically using almost all of the props that we use and just like hanging out. I also like to call it like nap yoga, and because it like taps into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about the, increasing your rest and your digestion, your relaxation. It helps you to have better cognitive thinking and better memory. It allows your body to start healing, which is technically what you do while you're napping. But each pose that I take you into has a specific function for what it does for the body as well, which is why I suggest coming to restorative yoga versus just taking a nap. And I also teach yin yoga, which works on more of the connective tissue. So the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons. It's also slower. So we spend anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes in each pose. And you just allow yourself to just kind of melt into the shape as well. And then the fastest form of yoga that I teach is hatha, which is a standard form, but even still, my classes are like super gentle and just focusing on the breath, focusing on how we can transcend the breath within the experience of our practice and how we can take all of this that we've learned on the mat to take it for our practice off of the mat, which I think is super important. Because more often than not, I find that we practice and we learn everything that we need to learn, but we forget about it when we leave class. We forget about it when we go into our daily lives, because it is very much like a, how do we apply this into this? Like we were talking about, with, like people with business, it's like, okay, I can be spiritual, but how can I be spiritual in business? They just don't know. And same thing with the yoga practice, like, oh, I can be loving and I can be kind and acceptance and this, but sometimes we don't know how to take that off into our daily lives. Like, how can I be loving? How can I be kind and accepting of myself and of others? And how can I even use this breath that I'm using in class? How can I take this into my everyday life? Like they just don't know how to do it, or they just forget to do it. So my classes are focused around being able to take everything that we do and bring it to your practice off the mat.
I think that that's really important. One of the things in the recovery program that I do, they always talk about like recovery isn't just in this room, it's what you do outside of the room for the other 23 hours. And it's just like what you're saying with yoga, like it's that suppleness and that flexibility that you apply to your life outside of being in the yoga, doing yoga, because that suppleness and flexibility can apply to your spirituality. It can apply to your mentality. It's not just physicality of it. It's the yoga of life, the yoga of relationships, the yoga of whatever, really.
Yeah, it's so like, and that's the one thing that that people get tripped up about with yoga is um, they think that yoga is just like the physical asana practice is what we call it. It's asanas, poses. When in reality, yoga, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and asana is just one. You know, meditation is another, pranayama is another, the yamas and the niyamas, which is like guidelines for what to do and guidelines to like not do, which is like, do no harm. And, like there's so many, and pratyahara, which is one of my favorite, which is like removal of the senses. So like going into like float tanks.
I've always wanted
like,
to do that.
Oh, they're so much fun. There's so much fun. But pratyahara, yeah. So there's 8 limbs and the physical is just one, but there's so much more that you can do, right? Like breathing is yoga. Meditation is yoga. Being present in the moment is yoga. So it doesn't have to be a physical practice. Yoga, it's like exactly yoga of relationships, yoga of love, yoga of parenting, yoga of business, the yoga of whatever it is that's in your life that we can practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome concept. Have you ever heard of the Gonsenfeld effect when you were talking about like the senses or whatever?
No.
It's this doctor did this study, and he came to the conclusion that if you take a ping pong ball, cut it in half, and put it over your eyes so you can't really see anything clearly, and then listen to static, that it'll give you almost an effect similar to like a float tank or something like that, supposedly.
Oh, really?
I've never gotten the ping pong balls to try it. I tried it with something, but they weren't opaque.
Oh, okay. Oh, they have to be ping pong balls though.
Yeah, because you need the opaque where the light can like diffuse through them or whatever.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've always wanted to try it. When I hear people talk about like float tanks, I bring it up just to see if anybody has tried it. I guess I'll just have to do it.
Yeah. It's also probably cheaper than going down to a float tank, let's be honest.
Yeah, but you don't get the full floating effect too, I feel. So
no, absolutely. But I don't have I don't know what the pricing is there, but here in Toronto it's like hella expensive.
Yeah, I don't imagine it's cheap because they have to, I assume they have to change the water all the time and keep those things pretty clean.
And there's like anywhere between, I went to a place where there was 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt and like sea salt in it, to another place where there was like 3,000 pounds of salt in it. So like, yeah, it's wild. You definitely need to give it a try.
Yeah, I will. That sounds awesome. It sounds like something I would like.
Yeah. It's awesome. Ask for it for like a Christmas gift or like a gift of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
It's really special when someone else treats you to it. It feels special, at least.
Everything's always better when you don't have to pay for
it. Sort of true.
Did you feel like you were different than others as a child?
So listening to because I listened to a couple of your episodes and listening to all these other podcasts, like the one thing that I found in common with everyone was that they felt different as a child, like whether it was like I just knew I wasn't a part of this planet, so maybe they're a Pleiadian or something, or they're from Atlantis, or like this didn't feel like they fit in with everyone. And every time I thought about that, I've just been thinking, like, was I different? Like, was I a different kid growing up? And in a way I wasn't in the way that, like, I think I'm, I was born into another solar system before this, or I'm not a star seed or an indigo or a crystal kid, or like I'm not different in those ways, but I always felt just unique. I always felt unique. I always felt like my interests were not of normal 8-year-old interests. And, like I just kind of, in one way I did what I wanted to do, but on the other hand, you know, and doing that made me very unpopular. Just kind of made me like not necessarily the weird kid, but it just did not make me popular as a child or even growing up. So combining that with trying to fit in somewhat, so I didn't feel, you know, because I didn't feel like I was like super weird or anything, but I didn't feel like I was like part of the crowd either.
Mm-hmm.
But like growing up, I mean, thanks to my dad too, you would find this actually very, very fascinating. Growing up, my dad was all about the Celestine prophecies. He was all about crystals and ghosts. And in fact, he, it's so silly. I'm like, but people tell me all the time that if he was to do this now, he'd make a lot of money. He would make copper pyramids that were like 3-dimensional and large enough that either he would hang them up from the ceiling and just like above where he worked so that he was underneath the pyramid as he worked.
Pyramid power.
Pardon?
Pyramid power.
Yeah. And in fact, he made one. So my dad's 6'1", and you know, he's not like at the time he wasn't a hefty guy, but he wasn't a petite guy either. But he would make a pyramid that was probably easily like 4 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
A copper pyramid that he would sit under and meditate. And he had a quartz crystal that he would put on top, and he would sit under it and meditate with it. And I think because of my dad's influence with his very spiritual out there, my dad's always believed in conspiracy theories and aliens and this and that, and he's all about it. That I think because of him, and because I was kind of like, oh, this is normal stuff. Like, what do you mean that this isn't like, yeah, of course this is normal. Of course I believe this. Of course there's ghosts and aliens and this, that stuff that are among us. Of course there is. Like, it just felt like it was natural. I never felt like I had to challenge him around it. So in that way, I felt like I was different, because when people would be like, I'd be like, oh, I went to a haunted mansion in North Carolina, and we had to walk around the grave backwards 7 times in order for the ghost to come. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing. It's so much fun. And people would be like, kind of look at me like, okay, weirdo over here. But yeah, like I always thought it was like so natural that these things existed. Like I never doubted it. I never doubted the energy. I never doubted the tarot. I never doubted, you know, I never doubted any of it. So in that way, I feel like it made me different, but not in the way of that a lot of other people could feel like they were different.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You about ghosts made me think of something that I've heard, which I haven't had to ask many people about, but it was on I want to say the Rune Soup podcast. But one of Gordon White's guests talked about the concept of haunting yourself, like ghosts or us haunting ourselves. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I have never thought about that. Like past lives haunting ourselves, or like, just like our shadow self haunting ourselves.
Like poltergeists or stuff like that are kind of like us haunting ourselves, and like maybe even the concept of like ghosts that we see at certain areas are created by collective consciousness of people believing in it, so it's there. Like for example, one of the things they talk about is like there's a crybaby bridge in lots of different places in the United States. They all have the same story, where like some woman threw her baby off the bridge and now it's haunted.
Okay.
But there'll actually be like some manifestations of paranormal occurrences there, and so it kind of goes in like the concept of like a tulpa or something like that almost.
I just thought I've never heard of that. That's something I'm gonna have to ponder on and kind of just like reflect on a little bit more. Because in a way, it's like the only people, I don't know.
I think it could be both as well. Like I don't think it has to be mutually exclusive, but like the concept of us haunting ourselves is interesting to me.
It's a very interesting concept. Yeah, that's interesting. Because this one particular house, we were on our way to Disney World, and my dad was like, we have to go to this mansion. We have to go. Like, it's renowned, it's famous. I've contacted them. We have to go. And my dad's a photographer too, so he would just be taking pictures of this place because it was a beautiful old mansion. And in almost every single photo, there was like the silhouette of a man, a silhouette of a woman, a silhouette of like a woman pregnant. And
wow.
yeah, so in a way I'm like, okay, like I believe that there are energies and spirits like that are around us that only certain things can capture and can think. But it's a really interesting theory about how we haunt ourselves.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's probably a little bit of both, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what the world is all about, right? Like,
yeah, nothing really is exclusively one thing.
No, never.
Do you have any odd experiences you are willing to discuss?
Aside from going to the mansion and seeing ghosts everywhere.
That's not odd enough. That's not odd enough for me. That's way too normal.
I know, right? Way too normal. I was thinking about this, and I was like, as of lately, there hasn't been too many like odd experiences or encounters or anything like that. Aside from like a lot of really interesting synchronicities that happen, like really, really interesting and kind of like, oh, didn't think that would happen. Like, I mean, like this one's just a fun one, but it was like, it was kind of odd in the way you're like, oh, okay. Where another member of the Positive Head group, his name is Michael, and he was doing free tarot readings online as well. And apparently this was his first time doing online face-to-face. Like he's done everything face-to-face, but this is the first time he's ever done online. And so I'm chatting with him, and he's like, oh, well, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, Toronto. And he's like, no way, no way. He's like, my roommate's from Toronto. I'm like, that's amazing. And he's like, oh, that's where she is right now too. I'm like, cool. And then I'm like, well, where are you? And he's like, I'm in Montevideo, Uruguay. I'm like, no way, that's amazing. And I was like, I grew up on a street just off of Montevideo Road. And he was just kind of like, and for him, like, it was a huge synchronistic thing for him because it was his first one. It was just kind of like the way of being on the path for him. But it's just a lot of synchronicities that I find that happen in my life. Like a lot of repetitive numbers that come up a lot. Like I get either triple ones or quadruple ones. So 1111 a lot. I get 222s a lot and 555s a lot, which all have different meanings according to it. But those, I would say, like, from being a child and being exposed to my dad was definitely probably the oddest experiences that I've experienced. Because my dad, have you ever heard of that Coast to Coast?
Oh yeah, I used to listen to it a lot.
Yes. My dad listens to that all the time. So much so that when I showed him it's on a podcast, he was like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, you can listen to it all the time now, Dad. You don't have to just wait till 11 o'clock at night. But he would always, like, we would always like talk, and he'd be like, who knows, that could be a spaceship up there. That could be an alien there, and this and the other. And so he's just kind of opened me up to the possibilities of certain things, or, So, nothing too odd in that regard, but definitely as a kid, it was odd.
Certainly. This is one of my concepts on like oddness of things too. Are you familiar with like the analogy of the frog in the pot?
No.
You turn the water up slowly so it doesn't really know that it's like in this pot of boiling water. But like I think that it applies to like odd occurrences in life somewhat, where like originally, like initially things are somewhat startling and like stand out very much so somewhat. And the more that it happens, the more you get acclimated to it. Like synchronicities, there was a time where like every time I had one, it's like, oh wow, and now it's just like it's just this, like, it's not that it's mundane, but it's just become like so commonplace that it's just like it is what it is.
And I think that's what's happening to my life. It's just kind of like, it's like, for me, I think that synchronicities are just like, or like the sequential numbers, it's just like a little wink. It's just a little wink from my higher self saying, you're here, you're good. This is where you need to be. Oh, I get deja vus a lot. I get it a lot of times. And I know there's so many different theories about what it actually is. I like to believe that deja vus are either, I don't know, sometimes I change my mind. Like sometimes I believe that it's literally like my higher self had projected in the future what was like, it has already gone into the future and it's now experiencing it now. Sometimes I do think that it's just like a moment or like a dream that I had, where I was maybe predicting, I don't know. But I can always estimate around how long ago I had this experience. So if I have it and I sit with it and I watch it play out the way that it's meant to play out, sometimes I can be like, this happened, or like this occurrence happened like 5 years ago, or this happened last month, or like I can estimate around like how long ago it was that I've had this occurrence before. And it's the exact same tone of voice, the exact same mood. Everyone's wearing the exact same thing. Everything's in the same place, like cooking the same meal, like whatever it is, like I'm in the exact same place. And that I also find is another little wink to, you know, for my higher self saying like, you're good. This is where you need to be. You're on the right path. Yeah.
I've had deja vu a couple times, and I always find all the different theories fascinating. One of the ones I like is it like it's parallel universes like bumping or something like that, or like this two parallel universes being close together or whatever.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
I kind of think too that it's really all. I don't think it's always one thing either. Like, it's like most things. Like I think maybe that's why it shifts for you. Maybe because maybe different ones are different reasons why you remember it. Hard to say.
Totally.
This one's kind of a fun one. What superpowers do you possess, or what superpowers would you want?
Oh, this one. So the superpowers that I believe I possess is like what I said about like teaching yoga, which is being able to hold space for people. One of the things that I've realized that I want to do and what I'm good at is helping to create lasting transformational change within individuals, which is why I'm going back to school for psychotherapy and counseling, because it's something that I want to do and something that I'm good at doing. So like, I feel like that's a superpower in its own, because not too many people can actually sit with someone and be with them and hold the space for them to feel what they need to feel and to go through what they need to go through, right? But the superpower that I want, now this is a little weird, but it's interesting. Since going on my journey through personal development about 5 years ago, all of a sudden cause I always knew that everyone had different perspectives. Everyone, you know, had a different view on certain things, but it never really occurred to me on how differently we all think. Like the way that we see the world, even though let's say we have the same perspective on certain things, you still think differently than how I think. Like how you get from A to B is very different from how I get to A to B, which is very different from how everyone else gets from A to B. And even if it does look the same, it is slightly different still. Just like the fingerprints and the snowflakes, like not one person is alike in this way. And I've always been really fascinated with how everybody else thinks. And so I've always said to people, like, if you can give me any gift in the world, if you could just one gift, this is all I'll ever ask for. I'm not going to ask for any other gifts any other time. Like I'm going to be perfectly happy with this one thing. If I can have this superpower, it would be like the highlight of my life, which would be to, you're familiar with John Malkovich?
I'm familiar with, not really.
Okay. So have you seen the movie Being John Malkovich?
No, I have not. I'm familiar with the concept of it.
Okay.
I believe.
So what I would want to do is I would want to actually like sit in someone's brain. I'm like sitting like this, like just anxiously waiting and like seeing how you think, seeing how you operate, how you get from A to B. Like, oh, that's the reason why you do this, this, and this. Oh, that's how you view love. And that's how you view this person, even though this is what you say. Oh, this is what it's like from your perspective here. Like, it's kind of creepy that I would want to sit in someone's brain, just to understand how they think and how they go about it. But I would love that.
No, that's really interesting. I've never heard anybody say that. It brings up some questions for me, though. Do you think that a human mind would be able to handle that? Like, say that you had the ability, do you think you could actually handle that ability?
Yeah, that's something I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could. I mean, I'm super fascinated by it. So I feel like in a way, because of this fascination with it and this kind of like, I'm prepared already to do it, that it might be more, I might be able to be more inclined to be ready to and prepared to do it. But I don't necessarily know if I can do it for everybody. Like that, I think would be way too much, but it would be a really, really awesome, I don't know. I just think it would be a really awesome superpower to have. Would be
it's a really, I think it would be too. I think it'd kind of be like doing drugs in some ways, like doing like a psychedelic almost, because it would change
it totally
the whole
would.
perspective of things.
Yeah, it totally would. I never thought of it in that way. It's like the totally, sober way of doing drugs.
Right, getting in somebody else's mind. I think like reading a book would be the closest thing, but even that, it still has like ego and intention to portray things a certain way.
Yeah, because I find the same thing. Like, I'm really big into storytelling. So I love when people come together to tell stories. I love the podcasts out there that tell a story about someone. Have you heard S-Town yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It just recounts the story of this really unique kind of off the wall man from Alabama who's kind of like, I wish he found the Positive Head group, because I think that would have saved him in some ways. Just because he is like so out there, and he talks about sacred geometry, and he talks about this in a really small town in Alabama where it's not really, people don't talk about that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Amongst other things. But I love storytelling. I love hearing people's sides of it, and that's how you can see the perspective of it. But again, it kind of comes into the ego of it all too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really hard to like especially for me at times, to tell my story and not have ego associated with it, or like get out of my own way of telling my story.
right. It's like finding a way that like, it's not an autobiography, it's a biography, but you're telling the biography. So it's not even, so it's, so you're not kind of putting your own, and then I did this and this and this, rather than like Ross, was able to overcome these things by doing this. And
because it's all filtered through my perspective, no, no matter what. What circumstances do you feel shaped your life?
Oh yeah. I recently just did an article. My friend has a blog series called The Healing Journey. And I was just recently published as one of her interviewees. And even though The Healing Journey was surrounded by, like, and her other thing too is womb wellness. So like, coming into your womanhood and talking to the womb space. I still feel like the same journey that set me off for my healing journey is still the same journey that was like the defining moment of one of the defining moments of my life. But what first started it was at 18, my boyfriend at the time, his father committed suicide. And I wasn't necessarily the one left to hold the family together, but in a way I was, because I was the girlfriend and we had families. So I was kind of one of the people holding everybody up. But I was doing a lot of writing at that time, and I wrote a lot of poetry when I was a teenager. And one of it was talking about a butterfly and talking about the transformation that happens and what we do with that transformation. His father was an alcoholic, and he quit cold turkey, and then committed suicide 23 days later. So he didn't even give this transformation a try. He didn't even give this transformation a go, right? He just was like, done, can't do this anymore. And so since then, transformation and growth has been a huge part of my life. And then when I was 25, I met a soulmate who completely changed my entire world. And through that encounter with him, it was up, down. It was like the worst possible relationship I think I could ever have been on. But he came to me for a reason, right? Like that's what soulmates do. They come to you so you can learn a soul lesson, and they're not meant to stick around. Soulmates aren't actually meant to stick around, in my opinion, at least. They're meant to give you the soul lessons that you need to learn to move you into your next step. So once that relationship finished, I got sick, but through that sickness, I was able to heal myself. I found myself taking care of my body. I found myself taking care of the stress, because it was my immune system that was shot. And so I needed to heal my immune system, which also meant finding ways to cope and deal and work with the stress that caused this illness. And through all of that, I found yoga again, and I found restorative yoga, which is what I teach now. And what I'm teaching now is slowing down and finding that peace within. It also led me to, it gave me, I wouldn't even say the courage, because I don't feel like I have to gain courage to do something. I just do it. So I innately have courage, I suppose. But what it did was it allowed me to be my own person again, which was really, really nice. Like this new person, finding fun again in my life. And I traveled out to, I lived abroad in Australia for a year, which was like probably one of the best years of my life still to date. And I started a coaching course there, where I started my personal development. And it's just like, ever since then, it's just been snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. So if it wasn't for my boyfriend's father committing suicide, I wouldn't really have learned about what transformation can look like and how you take it on. And then if it wasn't for the soulmate, I wouldn't have, like, he literally catapulted me into where I am today. But the transformation, the growth, everything has actually come out of it. And it's been a story of my life, is transformation and growth. But yeah, those are the experiences, and it just kind of keeps going and going and going and going. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so those are the two moments I would say that really changed my life.
Hearing you talk about the relationship thing, I can definitely relate to that. I've only ever been in 3 committed relationships, and in each one I kind of dated I became the person that I dated last in the next relationship, to where like, but like looking back on it now, like when you were saying that, I realized the concept of like, I had to kind of be taken apart the way that I was so I could be built back together. Like, it's like people that enjoy taking apart electronics just to know how to know how they're built or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like, I had to be deconstructed through my choices and my attitudes and actions.
Yeah.
To know how, like, to put a Ross together, like, where it works.
It's pretty much it. Yeah. It's like Lego blocks, like trying to create a Lego Ross.
Yeah. That actually, like, the Lego block things connects to something that I thought when I was going through psychosis at one point. I was at a family function, and my niece and nephew were there, and like, people have such a negative opinion of psychosis or things like that and think it's about violence. Like, I was just thinking nutty stuff then. But like, one of the biggest concepts I had was I built this thing up, and then my nephew's kid came over and like destroyed it. And I was like, that's really the 2 types of people in the world, the builders or the destroyers. And like, I really think that really is the classification, because even if somebody's not participating in any way in building something, they're still destroying stuff. And in my perspective by non-participation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a weird little tangent, but the Lego thing tripped the trigger. I don't know how my mind works.
It works. See, I would love to go into your brain and figure that out, right? Just to see it, just to observe it.
Bring a poncho and some hip waders. So the next question, what positive lessons did you learn from negative experiences? I feel like you answered that.
Yeah. Because the other thing too, it's like, I actually don't think there's anything called a negative experience. Like, I mean, at the time you might be like, oh, this is so bad, it's awful, but it's not negative. I mean, we put that spin of it being, everything is neutral. It's just how we perceive it, right? But I learned from all of my lessons, whether they're negative or positive. So, yeah.
No, I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
On one of my first episodes, I talked about not labeling experiences, and I've gotten away from that apparently, but like, I do find that to be absolutely true. Some of the worst experiences in my life turned out to be the best, and some of the best turned out to be the worst. Like stuff that I really wanted blew up in my face, and stuff that I didn't want became such an asset.
Well, because that's the thing. We force everything, right? When we force things to happen, it never works out the way that it's meant to work out, because we're forcing the situation to happen, right? Like, we're not actually allowing it to just naturally come into our lives the way that it needs to. And because whether we're resistant to the things we don't want to happen or not, but once we kind of just allow like that little gate to open, just even 1%, it just like takes it all. It just goes, all right, we're just gonna go in here no matter what. But
yeah, that's one of the things in my life that I've realized too, like in regards to relationships, like the one woman that her and I talked about dating last summer, I like really tried to force the dating situation or whatever. And then I had all these expectations built up around what it would be like, what it should be like. Well, if I do this, this should happen. Like all this jargon in my mind. And it's like, well, there's like, without a doubt, the reason it didn't work was because of all of that. And because even if she would have done all those things, then there still would have been something wrong, because she didn't do how I thought she should do this, right? So now she needs to do this, and it just perpetuates itself. So then eventually I wouldn't even be dating the person that I liked to be.
No, you were dating someone that you thought you should be dating.
Yeah, it's like complete lunacy, really.
Yeah, well, it was a blessing in disguise.
Actually, it really was. Her and I are still friends now. We hang out like once a week or so. But really, that whole experience with her is what got me into recovery, because having, I really hadn't drank heavily for like 2 years, but having that situation occur in a period where I wasn't drinking, and evaluating my behavior and seeing how I treated her made me realize that I was acting like I was like a 13-year-old little boy, and made me realize all those abandonment issues and stuff like that I had in regards to women. And also, like the very last day that I used, like drank and smoked weed, I went to my brother's house. I drank a beer with his buddies at like 9 a.m. I smoked some weed with them, and then I had given that my friend all my weed the day before for her birthday. So I went home. I didn't have anything, and I was just sitting there with this horrible fucking feeling inside, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. It's never gonna work. I'm always gonna be lonely. And then I drank a double deuce of Heineken that night, and I was like, fuck, this is what causes all of this to happen, is me running from feeling this. And I could tell that if I drank anymore, if I did any more pot, like, because if I didn't have pot, I'd go to booze. But if I did anything else, it was going to create this big chain of events that would essentially either send me back to the psych ward, put me in jail, or like something like that. Like,
yeah.
So I thank her so much. I tell her she saved my life. Like, I don't think she necessarily understands like how grateful I am that she didn't give me what I wanted.
Yeah. Eternally grateful for that one no.
Yeah, I actually wrote a song about her, and one of the lyrics is, "Your rejection was a blessing." or something like
Yeah, that's awesome.
that.
That's amazing.
It's so funny how that works out.
All the time.
Hmm.
Always.
What philosophy, spirituality, or religions do you find most aligned with your understanding? Please explain them as they apply to you.
Yeah. I've never been one to subscribe to a particular religion or philosophy that is strictly what something I believe in and it sticks with it, right? Like even with yoga, it's like, yeah, there's this whole culture, this whole philosophy, not even a religion, but there's this whole philosophy around yoga. But it doesn't resonate with me every single part. Only certain parts do. And that's what I've done throughout the years. I've just kind of taken what has resonated with me within the certain religions or dogmas even, and just allowed myself to sit with that and make it my own. The closest thing right now where I am is probably Taoism. Just because I'm working with, I do a yoga program every Monday night, and we work with the elements, within traditional Chinese medicine. And my teacher is an acupuncturist, and so she's a Taoist just by proxy of her going into it. So I would say, just because of where I am, I would say probably Taoism is probably the closest to where I am. But on the other side, you've heard of alchemical healing?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I haven't ever studied it, but I definitely think that's been part of my journey.
Yes, because Hermeticism is part of alchemical healing, and even the tarot and Kabbalah is part of the alchemical healing process as well. And she does alchemical healing from the perspective of Taoism. And I've been learning alchemical healing from the perspective of Egyptian. The Egyptian side, so using Thoth and the elements, and kind of just invoking the ancient Egyptian ways. There's a book called Alchemical Healing by Nikki Scully, and that's the one I've been learning off of mostly. And it's just really fascinating because alchemy talks about just being able to transform and transmute whatever it is that we have, whether it's lead or metal or a negative feeling or this body part or something, and allows us to, through the work, through the healing, through us really delving deep and getting into it, we can transform everything into gold within ourselves. Like we can start to transform ourselves into this gold, into this place of enlightenment, into this place of feeling lighter and better through the healing. It also talks about how everything in life is a cycle. So it starts with this one called calcination, where literally it's like when your world falls apart around you. It's very similar to, like the phoenix. It's like ashes, like literally everything is at ashes and you have no idea where you're going to go next. And the cycle that goes around it talks about kind of like that phoenix rising from the ashes. It talks about the process that you go through in order for you to come out and go like, oh, like my world is built up again. And I was not in, it's kind of like, you have to go through you have to go through the shitty things in life in order to come out better, stronger, wiser, lighter, like you have to go through those moments, and everyone goes through it. And, so I just find that everything that it talks about is very appropriate to where I am in my journey as well, is there. And I think it's always been part of my journey. I just didn't know it until like 2 months ago.
No, that's awesome. I definitely relate a lot to Taoism. I actually read a daily meditation book that's a Taoist meditation. It's called 365 Tao. I really recommend it if you haven't heard of it.
You know what? Someone sent me a link to it for the Daily Tao, and it's like you just have to refresh it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I just have to like keep it up there, and I just refresh it and I pull it up, and For some reason, I think either I closed everything out or my computer crashed, so I forgot to bring it back up again. But yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I get so much joy out of that, and like the alchemy thing. That's definitely been something that I've experienced in my own journey. I've done a couple episodes on alchemy as well. Actually, when I first started this podcast, I wrote a quote too, and it's like, I understand the concept of turning things to gold without the follies of King Midas or something like that. I'm paraphrasing my own quote, but, but I mean, it definitely is. Like, I think that alchemy really is a metaphor, and studying other elements of alchemy. I like the word you use better, calcination. One of the other words I've heard is putrefaction.
Yeah.
Calcination sounds so much better.
Doesn't quite sound as vulgar.
Yeah, like I don't picture this like puddle of liquid moldy mush or whatever, but
Yeah.
calcination sounds better.
Yeah.
No, I think those things are definitely aligned with me. And the thing I like about Taoism, it's like everything is the Tao. Like you can't not be with the Tao. You can be out of tune with it, but everything is the Tao. Even things that aren't the Tao. It's so confusing.
I know, and that's what I love about it. Is just like there's certain parts, like similar to like the alchemical healing process. Like there's just some parts of it may resonate with you more than others, but it's always part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part of Taoism is Wu Wei. Are you familiar with Wu Wei?
Off the top of my head, no.
Which is, oh my gosh, doing by not doing.
Oh,
yeah.
That's one of the things that's sometimes the most difficult for me to learn is that non-action is an action.
And just, yeah. And it's kind of wild because like when you can actually, like it happened to me, I came back from Belize and it just kind of happened. Like I wasn't intentionally trying to do by not do. And every time I did that, it turned into this big doing. But when I came back from Belize, it literally was like just happening. Like I was kind of like, whoa, what is going on here? Like I'm not doing anything. And by not doing anything, everything is happening for me. It was so cool and so weird, but you kind of have to not force it.
Yeah, that is interesting. One of the things in the Daily Tao that made me think of is it talks about a seed growing or whatever, and it's like nothing's really going on. There is no real action that you can see on the surface, but internally there's all this stuff going on, and it's kind of preparing itself to do the physical action that's about to be required.
Exactly. Yeah.
One other thing about how you talk about like taking pieces of things that you like and kind of leaving what doesn't work, that's something that I do as well. And it's like a spiritual and philosophical buffet style, and then like making mashed potato art out of stuff by making it your own or whatever.
That's such a cool example. I like that. It's like you're a little kid just trying to make your own thing at the buffet.
Yeah.
Well, all the adults are talking about whatever. You're just doing your own thing here.
I had the prime rib and it was overcooked. This prime rib isn't as good as the other. Yes. My prime rib's the best. Or whatever.
It's like, okay, we all think we have the answer. We don't actually.
Yeah, knowing you don't know is like one of the most liberating things ever, I feel like.
It's scary, and it makes you feel like an idiot sometimes because you think you knew. But then you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, which means that there's so much more I can learn and I can be in that place of the student. But it's always like that cycle of just like, what do you mean I don't know what I don't know? Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Like, you know, and then you're like, oh, but this is actually really great.
Yeah, it is. It's like that duality of things. It seems like the more I learn, the less I know, because everything fractals off into like a million different directions from there.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Ross, can we hold on for just 1 second?
Yeah.
My battery's about to die. So I just want to not cut out there in just the moment. It said that I have like 3 minutes left, and I was like, yikes.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides of me being a chatty Cathy is sometimes I get like
Same here.
I get so wrapped up in like I get so excited to talk to people that like I have all these thoughts, and it's like such a cool process to I don't get this kind of conversation in my day-to-day life really. Like
Yeah.
so I like to take advantage of it, I guess,
Yeah.
or like get the most out of it when I can. I'm
Oh,
sorry
for
if I'm holding
sure.
you hostage by like
You need to I'm not trying to like force you into it, but it's like if you move to a larger city, holy, like I don't know what it's like because the closest city to you would be Cincinnati.
no, Cleveland or Pittsburgh are both
Okay.
about the same distance.
Okay. So I'm not too sure what their conscious, exploratory people are like, but here in Toronto, it is ridiculous how large the community is.
Yeah, it's kind of
Ridiculous.
funny. Like where I used to live in Arcata, California, which is Humboldt County. So there was
Okay.
like a lot of like really spiritually minded people there, but it was also when I
Mhm.
was like the most spiritually bankrupt I've
Yeah,
ever been.
yeah.
So now that like I'm where I'm at, I'm in like probably the most spiritual bankrupt place that I've ever lived. I lived in Vegas too, so Vegas was obviously pretty spiritually bankrupt.
Yeah, Vegas would
But
be bad.
I kind of view it like this. I'm where I'm supposed to be now because there isn't many people like me here. And if you view like mushroom sport or like any kind of seed, you don't want to plant them all in one area.
No.
But I'm going to move out west again, outside of Portland eventually.
Nice.
So I think that'll be a good place for me.
Yeah, definitely. What's the city that in Portland, closer to the California border? Oh, I don't know. It's
Eugene?
Eugene. That's it. Yeah, that's where the woman who does the alchemical healing lives is in Eugene, and she was saying how like the land there is just really special. Like the land is just incredible there. So
I've driven through Eugene before. When I was coming down, I spent a summer up in northern Washington, and when I was coming down from northern Washington to live on the beach in Northern California, we crossed through Eugene. It was too flat for me.
okay.
There's like mountains around it, but I just remember like seeing the college, and it looked like a public school, like a public elementary school. I don't know.
Oh.
My perspective back then's a little bit. Hate to be judgmental, but I'm incredibly judgmental, and I'm judging everybody off of how their college looks. I'll judge the whole thing. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of growth to do.
Your college looked really flat.
I was going to use another F word for it, but flat is the best.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What do you perceive as your life's purpose?
When I was younger, probably since I was 4 years old and I started going to school, and up until I was 17 or 18, I wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher. And then when I was 17 or 18, and I had a moment where I was like, do I really want to be a teacher to either little kids who probably don't know how to listen, to prepubescent, or to kids who are going through puberty? I'm like, do I really want to be dealing with that age group? No. So I kind of kiboshed that idea, but every single career perspective that I've ever tried or even thought about or even tried to pursue has always been in service of others.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I think the only job I ever had that wasn't to be in service of others, actually 2 jobs, is I was a fundraising assistant for a organization here in Toronto. And even though it's to be of service to others, I wasn't in a position to do that. Like I was just doing data admin work, which was like actually killing my soul. And then the other job, which I went into thinking I was going to be in service to others, which was HR management, so human resources. I went into it because I was like, I love the admin side of this, but I also love working with people. So this is going to combine the two perfectly. And then realizing when I got into the HR world and into the corporate world that HR is not actually for the people. It's just to help implement and keep everything at peace for the company. Like it's not actually meant to bring like, you know, like it's not meant to actually like help the employees and the people of the company. It's there to just maintain the company standards, and so the policies and stuff like that, right? And dealing with any like conflicts or whatever. And I was like, this is not my jam. But everything that I've done up until like even up until right now, even teaching yoga, is to be of service to other people, to teach. And I find that that's really kind of interesting, that no matter what I'm doing is I'm being of service to others and I'm teaching. So I think that's my two purpose is whatever it is I'm meant to be teaching, I'm going to teach and be of service to others.
I think that's really awesome. I just want to make a light note, and then I'll move on to the next question.
Yeah.
I always thought it interesting that the term human resource, if you break it down, it's like making a resource out of the humans. Like
that's exactly it. Yeah.
It's really nefarious when you look at it like in that light. What do you need to do to feel that you are working towards that goal of being a teacher? It sounds like you're already doing it, but what do you need to do to progress it?
Well, it's funny because like we kind of touched on this whole idea. So I don't know what it is, whether it's because I always believe, like I used to be such an A-type personality. If I set a goal, I was out to go get it. And then being with that soulmate, he actually turned me on my head and I did a 180 and all of a sudden became like this like really chill, like plans can be made whenever they're made kind of person. And now I'm kind of like finding between the two. But for me, I can't set a goal and make it super specific because then I fall off the course, because then it feels too rigid. It feels too much like this is where my head has to be at. And that's just not how I work with my life. Right.
Flexibility, that yoga of goal yoga.
Goal yoga. I think we came up with a new Americanized term for it. But for me, it's setting the intention of what it is that I want. And in a way, it's the manifestation of it. Like just for me, it's setting the intention. This is what I want, or not even this is what I want, because sometimes what I want is not what I need. So sometimes I always just like even leave it to a broader thing of what is it that I need? And can you bring that to me? And it's like, okay, this is what I need and this is where I'm going to go. But in terms of like actually going after something that feels good in my heart of hearts, it's setting an intention. Yeah. Going back to it all, it's setting an intention, to achieve that, because I don't know how it's going to work. Like everything, like you can't ask the how. You should just ask for what you want or what you're asking of in your heart of hearts, and everything will figure itself out to get you there. So I just set the intention and I kind of keep it at the top of my mind. This is what I want. This is where I'm going. Like when I was applying for psychotherapy and counseling, it was something I had been wanting to do for the past year and a half. And I kind of pushed it to the side because I was like, oh, I don't have money right now for it. It's an extra $4,000 each year that's out of pocket, and I don't have that kind of money. So like, I'm like, I'll just push it off. And then my therapist was like, well, you had this goal, like why, like, what was your intention around it? Like, why did it fall to the wayside? And when she brought that up, I was like, oh, this was my intention for the past year and a half, because this is, it just felt right for me. And all of a sudden I just got bogged down with the little small things that don't really matter, because when something, The Alchemist, in Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, it says, the universe will conspire for you to go where you need to go, so long as, like you have that intention to be there. And so I've always believed that. And so I don't think of the small things. I can't think of the small things, or else I kind of get in my own way and I stop working with that goal. So,
and talking about manifestation, this is something that like has been really in my head a lot lately. Manifestation simply isn't like, let me rephrase this. Do you find that manifestation isn't just intention, but also action?
Oh, it's who you are.
Mm.
Like you manifest everything, and you manifest everything whether you know it or not, and whether you like it or not. It's who you, I find that manifestation is who you are. You know, you attract the people into your life based on who you are. You attract the experiences in your life based on who you are. And if you like it, amazing, keep going with it. If you don't like it, that's how you know. Like for me, that's my barometer of like, okay, where am I going with this? Like, where's my energy being sent? Where am I feeling here? So I think it's mostly who you are. But when you have an intention and it's part of who you are, it comes a lot easier than if it's an intention based solely off of materialism, or based solely off of trying to impress and being fake, or whatever. Or you think you really need it, but you really don't. But even still, sometimes I feel like you manifest everything that you want and manifest everything that you are.
So action is a part of it. Then if it is part of you, your action plays a role in it. Because I think that sometimes it seems like people get caught up in the fact that manifestation is just a lot of like wishing and intention with not taking any action.
Oh, no, you have to take action.
So you have to do the footwork.
You have to. Oh, absolutely. Like you can't just stay there and like, I want a Lamborghini. Like, okay, cool. And you just can't sit back and wait for the Lamborghini to come. It's like, you have to go on living your life. You have to go on doing what you need to do. And maybe the Lamborghini is going to come in the form of a rental car that your friend is like, oh my God, I just got a Lamborghini as a rental car. You want to come for a drive? And you can drive it too. It's like amazing. Or if it's continuing to work at your job and working and saving the money to all of a sudden get your Lamborghini, right? I mean, like that's a really extreme example and super materialistic, but you have to continue living your life and being who you are in order to attract that in the way that it's meant to come into your life.
Do you also think that a part of it would be saying yes to things that you're maybe fearful of or uncomfortable, like stepping out of your comfort zone for growth? Because for me, in my experience, a lot of the best manifestations came from facing things that terrified the shit out of me in lots of ways. Not putting yourself in danger, but like doing things that like you might have come up with a million excuses of why not to do, like changing your own story, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have a friend who, unfortunately has been telling the story of his life, which is, of misery and of depression and of hating himself for so long. He's just been telling himself that story since he was a little kid. But he wants things to change. And it's like, well, like I stepped out of my comfort zone and, even though I've always been optimistic and happy and, kind of seeing the brighter things in life, I still stepped out of my own comfort zone to have even like that kind of going, oh, like that leveling up kind of feeling. Right. And, it's been 5 years since I've been changing and working and facing my fears, but he hasn't done any of that really. And, it's like you have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to try new things. You have to try on all these different hats in order for you to be like, oh, okay. Oh, this is what I look like with this hat on. This is kind of interesting. Let's play with this for a little while and see where that goes. And by opening yourself up to that hat, you're now opening up yourself to all these other hats that could lead you to what you really want to manifest in your life, right? Yeah.
It's kind of like if you're cooking and you've eaten spaghetti every day for your whole life, and you're cooking and you're making spaghetti and wondering why you're eating spaghetti again.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I want to try fettuccine. It's like,
but you're still making spaghetti. I want fettuccine, but I'll keep making spaghetti. That's what I know. I don't know how to make fettuccine. And it's like,
and it's just like, and maybe it's literally just like turning your perspective like that 5 degrees to see the fettuccine right beside the spaghetti that you just need to just open yourself up to just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, like this applies to me definitely, but I think a lot of people participate in their own misery more so than they participate in their own happiness. Like,
Oh, 'cause it's so much easier to stay in misery.
yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I found out in recovery. There was a point where things were going really well, and I like being conscious and being free of substances and seeing where my mind went. I started to find all this shit to be upset about, really. It's because I'm comfortable being upset. I'm either comfortable having everything going really, really well and amazing where I'm all excited, or I'm comfortable being completely miserable and having to change things. I'm not comfortable in that state of non-action or just being. Like, that terrifies the shit out of me. Like, how do you do that? Like,
I know. There's a book called Mastery, and it's by I forget his last name, but I believe his first name is George. Oh, I wish I knew the last name. But Mastery, it's a really easy read, and he just talks about being the master of your field of whatever, and it's very similar to this, right? It's like being the master of your emotions and your being. And it's so much easier to appreciate the really, really highs. And in fact, when we go to the low, low lows, we don't mind those either. Like, we kind of enjoy these feelings because at least we're going through these ups and downs and feeling these things. But the plateau, like, that's the hardest part to be with, which is like what you're saying, like kind of just sitting and being. Like, the plateau is like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I sitting in misery is not what I want to do, and being ecstatic and happy is not what I want to do. What do you mean? This is just life being life. Like,
yeah, I actually brought that up at one of my meetings recently. What this one guy basically said made me realize that 90% of the time, that's actually exactly where I am. Like, but observing it, like it being like, well, crap, I'm not really happy and I'm not really sad. That changed everything. It's kind of like the observer effect in quantum physics or whatever. Where by looking at it, it changes what it is. And it's like, all I have to do is not focus on the fact that I'm just being and just be. It's
right.
like a conundrum.
Yeah.
If you had to describe your personal philosophy or condense your life and life experiences into a few words, what would it be?
Growth and adventure, and gratitude. Growth, adventure, gratitude, courage, I would say too, just because like it's just something innate in me that everyone's like, oh, it's so courageous of you to do this. And I'm like, I just did it. Like, I don't understand what's so courageous about it. And trusting the process, trusting yourself, trusting that everything's going to work out. Yeah.
That's awesome. I like all those. Those are all very powerful words.
Yeah.
We got 2 more questions, and then I'll let you get back to your day. Who inspires you?
Yeah. So this question always comes up for me, like just even in my own personal, like just reflections, is what inspires me? Who inspires me? And there's so many people out there who put like celebrities or like, you know, like even B-list or C-list celebrities up on the pedestal of who inspires them. And like I have one person, her name is Rachel Brathen, also known as Yoga Girl. She's like the top influencer in the health and well-being industry on Instagram. And she's quite inspiring in her experiences and where she's gone to and where she is today. And she's very vulnerable and very open on social media. And she's got her podcast now, From the Heart. And it's also very vulnerable and very open. And it's very inspirational just to know that there's someone who I could probably be friends with, like even though she's got like over 1 million followers on Instagram, and she had over 500 downloads by her second podcast.
Wow.
Like 500,000 million. I don't know. She got to like, yeah, that's what I'm like. It's insane. But she's someone who you can just like sit and have a coffee with and like chat with, and like she feels really real. But most of the people who inspire me are the people in my everyday life, you know, people who I surround myself with and who are, you know, even if it's just like a hello or this or that, they are people who inspire me. Like the group of women that I hang out with mostly, who are my networking group. It's this co-working. Are you familiar with co-working?
No.
Okay. So co-working is a space where people who are entrepreneurs or freelancers or who work from home, they can come together in this one space and just co-work together. Like it's an open space, and you just you can come and you can do your work, but you're not isolated from other people. So you can make these connections, you can have conversations. So the place that I'm at is called Shecosystem. And the women and the women there at Shecosystem are so incredible, so inspiring. And a lot of us there are about wellness and personal development, and we're about spirituality too. So it's like this is my people. Like this is who I want to be spending my time with, and they're all just so incredible and so inspiring. And in fact, I also have a client of mine who is just so wonderful in her being, and we do yoga together. But she's 75 years old, and she is a firecracker. Like, you know, like you wouldn't, like, just the way that her mind works and how fun and how just adventurous she is in her life, and how she speaks and how she writes is almost as if like she's not a day over 45, right? Like she's just so young in her personality. But we sit and we talk for an hour before we do yoga, and it's just like the things that we talk about is just really incredible, really incredible. And she inspires me because it's like she's 75, and it's like, you know, like she works on her personal development all the time, and she's always challenging the way that she thinks and the way she does things. And yeah, so I would say the people in my life and my everyday are the ones who inspire me.
No, that's awesome. That made me think of like how to package like that in like a really tangible form for me. And it's when you find inspiration in the people that are in your day-to-day life, you never lack any inspiration whatsoever. Like it's an abundance of inspiration when you can find it so close to your life. And I think if more people did that, they could go so much further than grasping for these intangible forms of inspiration.
Absolutely. And I'm finding that within my group, and the people that I follow on Instagram, like they're really big on the Insta stories. And so like, I love watching their Insta stories because it's like them talking to the camera, but also exposing something that they're going through and what they want to offer to other people, and just, you know, suggest or offer advice, or just even like, got my yoga on today, you know. And it's just kind of like, oh, right. Yeah. I haven't moved my body yet today. Let's go get it. Cause even as a yoga teacher, I sometimes forget.
Yeah.
You know, so like just small things like that, where it's just like those small little bits of inspiration every once in a while are just beautiful.
No, that's awesome. And this would be the last question. What books would you recommend to others, or what books impacted you the most?
Yeah. So going back to Paulo Coelho, his books are, I think, what were propelling me forward on my spiritual journey when I was younger. I read The Alchemist, I fell in love, and I just started collecting all of his other books. And I think I have 12 of his books. And yeah, and I don't have much on my bookshelf because I don't try to keep too much, because if I had my way, I would have had like 3 bookshelves worth of books already. So I try to keep as little as possible when it comes to books. But I have 12 of his books. And my absolute favorite one is The Witch of Portobello by him. And that's the one I have the quote written on the back of my neck. And it's just, his books are just so profound, and he doesn't talk about, he doesn't just talk about like the relationships or the day to day or this. Like, he actually talks about really deep things. He talks about God. He talks about energy. He talks about the connection. He talks about love. He talks about the development and like what stirs us inside to change and to transform. And if you ask anyone who's read any of his books, you can read the same book a year or 2 years later and you get a completely different message.
I love books like that.
Yeah, which is what a lot of his books. So I've read The Witch of Portobello probably 5 or 6 times now. The Alchemist, I've read it 4 times. The Zahir, I've read it twice. 11 Minutes, I've read twice. Aleph, I've read 3. You know, like there's just like, because I can just reread it, or even just like intuitively just flip to a page and be like, okay, what am I going to get from this? And then just read as long as I feel like I've got the message that I need. But his books are absolutely sensational. Like, yeah.
I'll have to check out his stuff sometime. You did a good sales pitch for his books.
It's just beautiful. And my friend who is Portuguese, she always teases, or she used to always tease me, I should say, about how she's like, his stuff is, she's like, you think his words are quite beautiful written in English. She's like, imagine what it would be like read in Portuguese. I'm like, maybe I need to learn Portuguese now just to read his, because it's been translated, right? So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'll have to check out his stuff. So I've asked previous guests to end the show in their own fashion. You don't have to, but you're allowed the last word. No pressure.
I know, right? The only thing that's coming up that I just want to say to everyone is be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Be compassionate and love. You know what? I'm going to come out sing a prayer that I always say at the end of my yoga class. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. May we never take this moment for granted. May we find truth and beauty in all that we seek. May we love from the deepest parts of our heart. May we find openness and acceptance within ourselves, within others, and within the world. May we know the strength of our soul. May our thoughts, our words, and our heart be in harmony with one another. Namaste.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply